right now there's like lots of things on the table, and I haven't been able to be in touch with everybody because it takes time. When I try to approach the makers, I definitely want to meet them. And throughout this year, the only meetings I had with people were pretty much watchmakers. I went to see them, wanted to get to know them, then went back, tried to see if I can make something with them. And if I can't make something now, maybe next year or in 5 years. And that's kind of how I've approached everything. You build a network, you have these people trusting you, then you find people who are interested in something like this, and then you try to communicate. And I can tell you, I'm basically not sleeping a lot. I work until about 4 in most days in the morning, and then I sleep until like 11 or 12 to go back to my life. But it's a little bit shifted because most of the people who are interested in this are truly in America. It's fascinating that America seems to have a little bit more of a different attitude to things that are not known. When I look at Europe, where this stuff is actually created, I mean, Lange and Moritz Grossmann, they're here, but the Europeans, they're not appreciating it so much, which is a shame. I'm always hoping that there will be a day when they start appreciating it too. But in the US, they really appreciate it, and they're like curious, and they're curious to learn about it, about the history, about how it's made. I have a YouTube channel with around 350 videos, just with one problem. It's under 2 names, and I can't bring them back together. I don't know, I can't figure it out. But there's lots of videos from small watchmakers where you see bits and sometimes even longer videos where I'm explaining things.
Yeah, let's make sure that we put that in the comments section of this video on my channel, and then maybe we can get people over to those channels to check it out.
Yes, cool.
Yeah. Now, so you really work to convey the specifics of what your client is looking to accomplish with each project. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. I basically, once I'm sitting down, and I sometimes bring clients to buy something completely different. The Moritz Grossmann Wuttileinen project, that was not an obvious project to happen, but it did. Because once I showed what this is about, it had a very special movement, a movement that goes back to Perelli and Breguet, and then never was really made again. There are some vintage watches where they tried to make these hammer automatic movements similar to this one, but they never worked. I don't know a single vintage watch where this kind of movement worked. And when Moritz Grossmann created theirs and first presented it, and I saw the first prototype, I was testing it and it didn't work either. So they had to go back to the drawing board and spend nearly another 1.5 or 2 until they got it to work.
That was I remember seeing that movement. That was a beautiful, I believe it's right here.
Yes. Yeah.
Let's jump back to that. Right here.
Yes, it is.
What a unique looking movement.
We looked at this movement under, I don't know, 100 times magnification or something on like a huge screen when I made the video about this watch. And everybody in the room said, we've seen everything. They have seen the Pateks, they have seen the Lange, they have seen everything. And they said the finishing, like initially I wasn't even sure if you had like some of these, you know, like, how do you call this? The bevels or something. But here you see like a very equal hand-finished bevel on an incredibly amazing handmade way in this huge magnification. It's really impressive.
Yeah, I agree. It is
yeah.
one of the most unique movements I've seen in my experience.
But, I would say the same. Yeah, absolutely, Mark.
Yeah. Maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. We were over on this website. Okay, so you work with your clients to make sure that they have the experience that they're looking for, all of the specifics of each watch, from movement to case to to dial, everything involved in it becomes, of course, very specific. Um, is there ever a time that you've had an issue with your clients wanting to work just directly with the watchmakers and not with you once you've been introduced?
Yes, that does happen. It happened when I got started with it, and I was working with another small brand of watches that are more in the 5,000 euro dollar category, and we kind of couldn't figure it out. And I noticed there's more and more clients all going behind my back, so I kind of got out of it, and it just wouldn't work. I mean, I can't make phone calls with people in New York and in LA, and then as a final result they order the watch straight from the watchmaker.
Right.
I think when it gets complicated and when it gets expensive, they will stay with me for the reason I am here. I have over 20 years experience with these watches. I have seen all these manufacturers. I was at Patek. I was in many of the big brands. I was at all the small brands. I've seen all these processes. I've seen big machines. I've also seen tiny devices that are used to make things by hand. I have seen all the artisanal stuff, the gouaching, the enameling, and how much work it takes and how much trial and error it takes, because people think, oh, an enamel dial, I see that in every pocket watch. That's true. But in order to make it right, it may not always work at the first time. And sometimes they have to do it 2, 3, 4 times, and then it works. So there's a lot of persistence needed for all these people participating in the work.
So then if I can summarize, it's not just that you help a client such as myself find the watchmaker or combination of watchmakers to make the product, but then it's your oversight of that project to make sure it's done correctly.
Yeah. Especially when it gets complicated. And in the case of the Boris Grossman with Kari Voutilainen, sure, somebody could have approached Boris Grossman and say, okay, and at this point, Boris Grossman has made a few more Kari Voutilainen pieces, and that's great that they have detected something that works for them, and somebody who makes fantastic dials. Wonderful, nothing wrong with that. I am working at the moment on 2 more Boris Grossman projects. One is based on, I can't tell too much, but it's going to have a dial based on the lacquer of a luxury vehicle. It's not yet perfectly working. And the other one will maybe another artisanal dial and could end up with Kari. I don't know today. I can't tell today. It could be Kari. It could be Jochen Benzinger, who we have mentioned in our conversation today, I think. So I don't know yet. And that's kind of where I am. I figure this out. I have to see who can do it, who has the technology, the knowledge, and then does it fit together?
Right. And I guess that's the point, is that if you're working with someone like me in the United States or any other country outside of your region of Germany, Switzerland, that general region, to get it right, to get every detail right, and to perfect it along the way. As you said, some of this is trial and error and takes several attempts. You want to have someone who is overseeing that project so that when it's complete, you are really getting the watch of your dreams, not just something that's close to it.
Yeah. And I am a perfectionist. My girlfriend always calls me a maximalist. I am somebody who wants to do this absolutely perfect, and I will do everything to make it happen. And if something is not solvable the way it is, I'll find a different solution. And that's where you need somebody like that, because oftentimes in these places, the people are so busy with other stuff. So my task is to really manage this, then see if it works. Once it works, I'm out. And then I leave the client also to talk. The clients love to talk and love to get pictures from the processes and see like how these things come together and how the watch is put together. So right now I have a project that's going to probably be finished in March or April with Daniel Roth. And here we have already, the client is in touch with Daniel, and Daniel told him just a few days ago, listen, now I'm starting with everything. You'll see with pictures along the way how I'm progressing, and the finishing of Daniel. Boy, this is just another Philippe Dufour.
Yeah. Now, how many projects do you typically have going on at any one time?
Not many,
No.
maybe a handful, something like that. I don't know how far I could go. You obviously need to pull them in. And these sales are not like abundant sales where you're selling like all these watches like every day. You don't need to either. So I think over the last year, I don't know, I haven't counted. I would have to look back in my bookkeeping, but I probably had like about 30 projects or 30 watches. That's not a lot, but it's enough work for one person.
It would seem like it because you're managing so many details with so many relationships. Is it typical for you to be managing multiple watchmakers who are working together on a project?
You don't want to have too many because it's very challenging. Like, I mean, if I had 20 at one time, I would go ballistic. I don't think I could handle it. But if you have 2 or 3, that's okay. No problem. Yeah.
It sounds like the Kari Voutilainen Moritz Grossman relationship was very successful and has maybe continued to be successful. Do you see that type of relationship beginning to become more commonplace in what you do?
Yes, there are people asking for something like that. It doesn't always work. There are, you know, when it gets very crazy, I am in touch at the moment with a very amazing German watchmaker. I think when we wrote today to each other, I mentioned him, Christian Klinks. He is already over 60. He is considered to be possibly the best German watchmaker. You basically, similar to like a Roger Smith in England, you can go to him and you can say, listen, I want you to build this watch and build it with, I don't know, this and that and a tourbillon and this, and I wanted that. And so, but then it takes a year or 2 until he makes it. And we had a few conversations in the last couple of weeks, and he's a wonderful gentleman. He has called me back even, and we've had more talks. Fantastic. But to create something now with him for a client is going to be challenging because it takes time, and you kind of have to figure it out. Like, is he willing to do it? Can he do it? Can he match all these ideas from a client when they say, yeah, I want a power reserve, but I want the power reserve in the center and not on top, or to the right and not on the left. So there's lots of things that you have to figure out, because at that point, they have to find the movement that they either can rebuild or they have to build a movement all the way from scratch, which will take even longer.
Right. Now, well, let's just jump over to maybe some of the current projects or current brands that you're working with. You mentioned a number of them, and the first one that you actually mentioned today was Andreas Strehler.
Yeah, we haven't. There is something in discussion, but it's not a project that has started yet. And you know, you go along, you kind of try to incite the feeling of loving something like this, because a person who wants to buy something this exceptional, they must completely love this. You cannot push them. I would never push anybody. Once they love it, they will tell me. And even if it takes a year or 2, and then we go from there. I've been very good friends with Andreas. I've visited him, I don't know, an uncountable amount. I've been to his summer party. You know, those are events where you see famous watchmakers. I have seen Kurt Klaus, for example. I've seen Oechslin. So you see all these guys that have made inventions in the past that are significant to the watchmaking industry.
What is it? So working professionally with Andreas, is this is newer for you?
Yeah, for most of the time it was really a friendship, and I visited him a few months ago and opened up to him and said, well, there may be somebody now who is interested. So yes, he is. He will support me, and he will support a project. We have to see when this may start, and then once this gets going, we'll go along with all this. Andreas obviously is somebody who has also a factory behind him. You know, I think he calls him the watchmaker of the watchmakers, right, or something like that.
Yep.
That's what he truly is. There is so many movements out there where people don't know from whom they come. They come from him.
And I was just going to ask you, what really makes Andreas different from his contemporaries?
I would say he has an exceptional problem-solving skill and an exceptional understanding of movements. It's beyond imagination how, like, the way he thinks, he's just amazing. You know, when I sit down with him in his office and he starts to go on his computer, it's like, okay, let me try to understand, because he goes and flies through this, and it's like, there you can tell there's like all this deep understanding, which I obviously don't have. But it's amazing. If somebody tells him, Andreas, I need a project, a watch movement, he is responsible, and this is open knowledge, for the perpetual calendar, but also the other movements from Moser under the old ownership. I am not sure if the current watches from Moser are still the ones from Andreas. Probably the perpetual calendar still is. The others may not.
As the architect of the movement, if you will, is that accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, wonderful. Now,
a master at simplicity. The perpetual calendar from Moser.
Yeah.
I don't know any other perpetual that's so simple to handle, and you can handle it anytime. You don't have these problems like with many of these perpetual calendars when you have them sitting in your drawer for a year until you can set them. You're going crazy. With that one, no problem.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up here just in case someone hasn't seen that. What that would be under, is that Endeavor? Yes. Right here.
Okay.
Yes. So this movement uniquely, you can move forward and backward
Yes.
in the date.
Yes. I don't know how many others are that easy to set, but as far as I know, this is the easiest to set perpetual calendar watch I know in the market.
Yeah, it is that sort of thing when you see it functioning, you think to yourself, everything should be that easy, but I'm sure the mechanics behind this are incredible.
Yes. I think what has happened along the way, you know, when you have a bigger corporation and you have certain people that work on a project and you're putting together a watch movement, and you have highly intelligent and talented people, but nobody is really there who has the all-encompassing knowledge on what's going to happen and who can think about the total functionality in every detail and make it simple. And that's where Andreas is a genius. Andreas is a genius. He knows how to simplify things so they work as fascinating as they possibly can.
Wow.
And I think this is a little bit what I have basically learned along the way. I went to see all these people, so you see some of their strengths and weaknesses, and you find out what their strengths are, whereby when you just look at their web pages or you don't know much about it, you have no idea. You cannot have an idea, and there's no advertising in the world that could make them so well known that everybody knows. But I am somebody who can tell these stories and who can tell about the background of these people. And I think that's what makes some of these people fascinating and what makes their watches fascinating.
When I saw, I mean, that the Kari Voutilainen, Moritz Grossman project that you were at the center of, I mean, what a beautiful result. That style is incredible.
Yes. Absolutely. And it was very interesting because we didn't make a standard dial. You know, all these dials from Kari Voutilainen, you know, from his general watches that he makes, most of them have they're always in a similar way. This one, we went completely different, but Kari supported us in an amazing way.
Yeah. And this is the watch that we're talking about right here.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. So you show, and then the equally beautiful movement. I mean, what a great project to be involved in.
Absolutely. For me, this was fascinating. I must say that the kind of client that does something like this with you, they are also extremely supportive. You don't get to meet, you know, I'm sure you know this from forums in the past, like you have these people and then they buy a watch and they go in the forum or on Facebook or something and somebody tells them, yeah, but look at this, oh, there's a scratch on the glass or something, and then they're unhappy. People like this here, they are fascinated and they love what they see, and it's just they were so generous with me and so supportive, and that's kind of what a guy like me needs. I need the support from my current and future clients. If even us here talking, without people like you, where am I going to go in the future? At some point, it's not going to be possible. I need the support.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so it's such a fun but rewarding community to be a part of at any level, right? Someone like me who's
Absolutely.
more of a hobbyist but just has this passion for supporting small business and you know, watchmakers and things of that nature, to someone like you who has made a business of it and who has brought all of these relationships together. What a wealth of information. I remember when just before this watch was delivered to the client, and we won't mention his name here just in case he doesn't want to be mentioned, but I remember how excited he was. In fact, I think that you went and debuted this on another YouTube channel before he even received the watch. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We talked about it, and he said, Boris, don't worry, you don't have to deliver it today to me. If you can make a video or something great with it, and if it helps your business, I am all for it. And he was incredibly patient with me, incredibly kind and supportive. And that's like fascinating, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't really, in the old business, I would call it, with vintage watches, I have never felt this kind of support, because that's like a shark tank, everybody against everybody. Now, with all these projects, I am doing something that is so rewarding. It's rewarding to me, and I don't mean financially, it's rewarding to me because I can realize dreams for other people. I can also realize dreams for myself, because I would never have imagined these things would happen. And then these people in return are grateful for what I'm doing and supporting me to help me to grow further with this. Because obviously, as a small business, you don't want to do one project and then go home and that's it. If
Right.
I can do this every year or every 6 months, wonderful.
Do most of your new clients come through referral then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's either referral or long-term relationship, where these people are in communication with me for longer periods, and then at some point they find something they love, or from our conversations they're like, oh wow, this would be cool, and then we're talking. And you don't have people that just walk up to you, yeah, I want a whatever brand watch from you, please make it a project, and I want a green dial. That's not happening.
Right. And by the way, we'll post a link to this video from the Moritz Grossman Kari Voutilainen project in the comments as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So
It was
let's
a fantastic video. Great
yeah.
support from Marco. Great support from the current owner of this watch. And it's like when we looked at this watch in detail, we could hardly believe what we saw. And that shows that some of these, not industrial products, but like watches that are really treated by hand, they are on a different level. And I'm sure there's many of them that would be on a different level. Some we don't know yet, or we are not paying attention to them. And that's kind of my thing. I would like to bring it to the attention of people in the future and show people. And I mean, I'm hoping the virus goes away at some point, that we're going to get maybe vaccinated and things calm down. And then I'm hoping that people will come to Germany and meet with me. I'll pick them up and we'll go around and we'll look maybe at Moritz Grossmann and we'll look at some others here. There are fascinating watchmakers in Germany, not as many as Switzerland, but and then go to Switzerland, visit some of these people. And I'm sure this will grow further. I'll have projects probably that I can't imagine right now.
Right. That's my dream, by the way, is to come visit you.
Wonderful. You are very welcome.
Okay, so now we've talked about Andreas. We've talked about the Kari Voutilainen and Grossmann project. Let's go back to this brand, Haldimann, because I'm not familiar, but these images, when you first visit their website, are incredible.
Yes. He is somebody where I would say who makes the most with old tools, old machines by hand. I don't think anybody else. I've heard of another brand and I visited them as well. They're called Océan, two buddies who created this brand. It's about a year or two, I think, in the market now. They have worked on a project with, I think, Greubel 4C, but the watch is not out yet. I think it's a unique piece. And they're also doing a lot by hand. But Haldimann, Beat Haldimann, he is absolutely fascinating. It's a family that goes back to 1642. That's what he was able to research. And back then, his family was already watchmakers. He did find a pocket watch, I think, dating to like the late 17th century, which is still amazing to find a 300-year-old pocket watch.
Right. Wow. Now, when I'm what we're seeing here, I'm guessing is the flying central.
Yes, flying central, and there is a resonance tourbillon as well, which has basically two tourbillons on top of the dial in resonance with each other, similar to the resonance concept that you see with François Paul Journe or with Armin Strom, but with a tourbillon, with a double tourbillon.
I'm just seeing if we can find it on here.
So when I saw the pocket watch for the first time, I realized that a lot of what he does on his wristwatch is going back in history to the pocket watch. Not everything, and he has obviously given it a modern touch as well, but it's fascinating work. So he has a simple two-hand watch, he has a simple three-hand watch, he has the central tourbillon, which is his daily wearer also, and he has the double tourbillon and a minute repeater as well.
Wow. Yeah, when I saw this one, I mean, that is a work of art right there.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
You know, we've seen some young brands or brands that are 10 years in the market or something creating funky pieces as well. I love, for example, what Max Büsser is doing from MB&F, putting the balance on top and stuff like that. Great watches, very interesting designs. But in the case here of Beat Haldimann, you're kind of like merging the history more with something modern. It's kind of a different approach, and it's one person who does it. Generally, I see another watchmaker in his watch workshop. That's it, 2 people or maybe 3.
Are you seeing? It seems like, you know, number one, we have this energy in independent horology where we have young watchmakers beside maybe some of these older brands, you know, coming up through especially 2020 and now into 2021. But they seem to be going from maybe playing around with ETA movements and things of that nature, and then at some point they make this leap into creating their own architecture for their movements and things of that nature. Are you seeing that happen more and more? Are you talking to those people?
I am talking to a lot, yes.
Yeah.
The step from from an ETA movement to really their own movement, that's a huge step. If you look at this from a large production corporate scale, you're looking at $1 million investments. And I don't think $1 million is going to be sufficient. So for a small guy, creating this is extremely challenging. A lot of times when they are trying to move to a more independent movement, they're still using the Unitas or ETA base, then changing it a lot. You see this with a lot of brands. You have Kettelars in Holland, you have Dornblüt in Germany, you have, I was just looking at somebody in Prague, in Czechoslovakia, or in the Czech Republic. Czechoslovakia doesn't exist anymore in that sense. And he is using an ETA movement and then reworking it so much that you barely can recognize it.
Just the other day, I can't remember what it was on Kedlar's Instagram or Facebook. He showed the first renderings that I've seen, at least, of the architecture of his movement that he's finishing this year.
Oh, cool! I was
Yeah.
talking to him a week ago or something, and obviously he's very close to me. I think it's about an hour car ride, maybe hour and a half at most.
Yeah.
We definitely want to meet. It's not going to end up in a working relationship because he wants to stay independent. I understand that. He's also like, I mean, many of them have to do their own distribution, and that's absolutely fine by me. Doesn't mean I can't be curious. I still want to learn about it, what he does. I admire these people. So we're going to meet probably soon, maybe in a few months.
Right. And he's probably at a price point that maybe doesn't allow for you to be as involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's what you see with many of these, not, when the watch is 5,000 or 10, that's hard to have a distributor when you are working alone or just with one or two watchmakers. But when you have a watch that's 50 or 100K, then that's a lot easier.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. Okay, so we've talked about Haldimann. Is there anything else that we should know about this brand before we move on to Garrick?
I think I've covered most of it. We're going to make a repeat, and then I have more time to prepare. But he's definitely one of the fascinating guys. It's well worth a visit. I have visited him twice. I was there during summer again. We had lunch together. With these people, you oftentimes go there and they don't have a single watch to show you because they're making so few watches a year. You're out of luck. I have never personally seen the Resonance tourbillon. I wish I would sometime. And then, if he called me and said, "Hey, Boris, I got a Resonance tourbillon. You want to take a movie and some pictures?" I'll be in my car in the next hour.
Right.
Okay. He is located in what I consider potentially the most beautiful area of all of Switzerland. It's called Thun, and it's a lake, the Thun Lake. On the other side, you have like huge mountains, and where he is, it's just a beautiful small town. It looks like a painting when you're there.
Yeah. We so many times I've noticed that a lot of these watchmakers in Switzerland take the most beautiful photos of where they're located.
Yeah. You don't have them in Zurich you do have them, a lot of them in Geneva, but you don't have them in Zurich and not in bigger cities. And I think watchmakers need peace and quiet, and they need to focus and concentrate, and they wouldn't be able to do that if they lived in a bigger city.
That's understandable. So now we're going to an English watchmaker, correct?
Yes.
Now, how did you get to know, and is it pronounced Garrick? Garrick?
Yes, Garrick. Yes.
Garrick? Okay. How did you get to know these guys?
I can't exactly say who was first, but I do think it was Andreas Strehler who introduced me to David Brailsford, one of the founders and owners of Garrick. And David and I became good friends as well. And David is responsible also for my homepage. So if you find something bad about it, tell him. And there is like a circle of buddies, kind of, like when we go to Basel World, at the end of the day, we all hang out somewhere, and there's like Andreas Strehler, Gerber, Garrick, and Walt, and some of these people, and even Beat Haldimann, and they all know each other. And then we hang out with maybe some journalists at, Michael Clarizo. You've probably heard of him. He is the journalist who first wrote about that crazy Paul Newman Daytona that was sold a few years ago for, I think, around 17 million.
Yeah, yeah.
So all these guys, we're hanging out in like the restaurant. Sometimes we go even to Germany because obviously Basel is completely packed and going ballistic. You're looking at pizzas that are $70, and then you go to Germany and they're $7.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's very similar to a lot of businesses. You were mentioning that they're responsible for your, even down to your website. I know that I'm here in North Carolina in the United States, and it was one of my customers down in New Orleans, Louisiana, that introduced me to the person who eventually became my webmaster. And those, so relationships, no matter what business you're in, are so important.
Absolutely, Mark. Well, it's a matter of trust. I mean, do you want to go and talk to some stranger and let him build your website, and you don't know what he's doing? I wouldn't do that. So really, relationships, and I think relationships in this watch industry, they are so important, because when it comes to this much money involved, a lot of people become criminal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to know who you're dealing with. You want to know they have a good track record. And there are some discussions with clients at the moment where they're asking me, Boris, could I potentially buy a watch from this or this guy? And even I don't necessarily know everybody personally. And I am very cautious because I've seen it all in my early time when I started my company. I ran into a few bad guys, and among them was one person who I knew for 8 years. And he was a client who bought several watches from me and then turned bad and stole a very important and expensive watch from me. It happens.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, with Garrick here, not only are they English, but maybe they, and tell me if I'm wrong, they appear to have made this transition from something that is more of an off-the-shelf movement to now making their own in-house movement?
Yes, yes. And I do believe it's all with the support of Andreas Strehler.
Ah, okay.
So you have the watchmaker of the watchmakers, at least giving a lot of support, I'm sure. I don't know the full scope. We haven't talked enough about it, but he is, I think, at this point where he is making the move from whatever ETA or something to his own in-house movement. They do need support, though, and you need somebody similar to Andreas who has this knowledge and experience in order not to fail with the movement. And there are stories in the past with watches that kind of may have been failures. I mean, it sometimes takes time until they become obvious, and they maybe get fixed later on. But there are people out there who potentially got watches that aren't fully working.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
Have you done a project with Garrick yet?
No, we have tried it several times with people, and then people come up with different ideas, and that happens a lot to me. So I have somebody who I get to talk to, and then the guy is like, oh, I like this. Boris, what do you think? And then you go along, and then during the conversation, maybe over a week or two or several weeks, they're like, whoa, Boris, I saw a picture. You posted something like this. What is this? And then all of a sudden, you completely move away from something that you thought, oh, I'm going to make a sale here on this brand. No, all of a sudden, we're with something completely different. Yeah. So that's part of, I view myself maybe a little bit also, I don't want to call myself an educator because I don't feel like a teacher, but a little bit I am an educator. I basically open the doors to people to see, look at what's possible in watchmaking.
Right. Well, I can see that easily happening because if you don't know what all your options are as the consumer, as the person who is looking to create, be a part of creating this unique piece, and now your world begins to open up for you and you begin seeing things that you've never seen before, possibly. Well,
Absolutely.
you may go in with a very narrow um, perception of what's possible, and within several meetings or several conversations, go, "Oh my goodness, I don't even know if what I thought I wanted, I really want anymore."
Yeah,
It really is
absolutely.
mind
And I
expanding.
think these independents, they need more time and they also need more education. That's something a jeweler can't afford to do. If a jeweler would have to spend so much time educating their clients or walking through his door, he can probably shut his business. And I can do it because I'm alone, and I also have this, like, I accumulated so much insight, so much knowledge on all of this, that I'm slowly able to pull the strings together for me to make sense of all of this, and also to talk long enough with a person to see, well, maybe you don't want a tourbillon, or maybe you don't want a three-hander or a two-hander watch. You actually want this, or you want a watch with a retrograde indication, or you want a watch with, I don't know, with an equation or something. I mean, there's, or moon phase, or I mean, there's so much that can be had, and there's so much that could be combined. Um, and that's kind of like what I do over time. And I know you need time with it. You can't do it fast.
Yeah. Well, I've never, said to myself, "Oh, you know what I would like to have in a watch is a tourbillon," right? However,
Yes.
now when I came to the Haldimann site and I saw that central tourbillon, I thought to myself, maybe I do.
Oh, yeah.
um,
Holy crap, right?
right, right. Because you just don't know what's possible. But it brings me back to one other point then, and that is the value of your business. And that
Yeah.
is that I've worked with watchmakers before where I felt like I was maybe taking too much of their time, where I was changing too many things. And I would imagine that for someone like that who is so creative and artistic, that could become a little frustrating when it seems that your client maybe is always changing their mind. But if they're working with you, if you're working between the brand or multiple brands and the person who is trying to get their arms around what it is they want to create, it can take maybe that frustration out of it for both parties.
Yes. I think, okay, let me kind of say, you can't approach it and say, oh, I need to make a sale. I need to make money. If you're under the gun and you have to do this right now, don't do what I do. You're in the wrong business. But if you have the time, the patience, and you can handle a client that says to you, oh, yeah, I want a tourbillon. In 3 weeks, he's like, man, screw that tourbillon. Oh, I saw a different tourbillon. Holy cow, this is like a 3-minute tourbillon. I didn't even know that works. Or whatever. We come to more brands in a little while that I sent to you. So I'm sure
Yeah.
there's lots of things that are so different. Um, if you go along with this and you educate the people on it, then they start. It's basically like you take a baby, and after about a year, that baby starts walking. And that's kind of what I do. I get a baby. A little while later, that baby starts walking, and then they're overtaking me. At some point, I'm getting older, they're still young, and they're running. And then
Right.
they're teaching me, and that's usually what I have to get to the point. There's two kind of clients. There are those who run by themselves faster than me, and there are those who say, you know what, Boris, I'm so busy. I don't have the time to think about it. Just help me with it and find something that I fall in love with. And then I basically go and try to figure out what's the colors you love, what's the things you love. Do you like moon phases? Do you like cluttered dials? Do you like a dial that's clean and neat? what do you like? And then I go and create it for them. And I've had both kind of clients in the past year.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Now, before we move on from Garrick, what else do we need to know about this brand?
That's a good question. I haven't visited them. I kind of wanted to do this actually in this year, and this year obviously was a deadbeat year for travel. The only travels I've done were in Germany and in Switzerland. I haven't even seen a different country in this year.
Gotcha.
So I would love to visit. I know another of their watchmakers. I have attended several watchmaker events that are organized by David Brailsford in London. Great events, lots of fun, lots of other people. London is also kind of like a big global city, you know, like in Germany, we don't have cities that are really globally important, not like New York City or San Francisco or LA or Miami. We don't have that, and not like Paris or London. But London is fantastic, and it has like an unbelievable amount. I've had great connections with collectors. There are some fascinating collectors in London that you will have a hard time finding here.